let's go to Jennifer, who's calling us from New York. Jennifer listens on Facebook. Jennifer, welcome to the program.
Well, I was listening to you talk about that in your counseling, that woman and that guy, and kind of, and then today how you've been talking about kind of knowing who you are. And I think that's both me and my husband are on our healing process journey together. And that was, my situation somewhat similar to that, but we're both healing now. And I guess my question is, part of when you walk into healing, you find out some of it's childhood stuff. And my father was a pastor, he still is, and I'm healing. But my question is letting go. How do you let go of those negative thought patterns from choices that you may have made in your pain and choices you want to move forward, but those negative thought patterns keep, there, and you want to move into moving forward and not holding on to those thought patterns that kind of keep you stuck? How to shift
what would be
out?
an example? What kind of thought patterns are we talking about, and how do they manifest themselves?
For me, kind of like being too hard on myself by some of the choices I made in my past out of, how I survived through some of my situations. And so a negative thought pattern would roll through my mind, like, you shouldn't have done that, or just thoughts of, choices that I made that made me feel bad, like shame choices or guilt choices. And it kind of rolls through and you try to push it back saying, no, I know I'm a child of God. I know I'm no longer, doing those choices, or I'm no longer allowing for me.
Are you kind of trying to talk yourself out of the badness? Since I no longer do this and I make better choices now, I was really bad, but now I'm doing some good and I ought to be able to kind of not feel bad. So
I made those choices out of, how do you say it, not really being allowed to be who I was. And, growing up, I was a pastor's kid and different things happened in my parents' divorce, and I was given up some choices that I made through my pain that probably wasn't the best way of handling things. And then I went into a marriage where it was more like what you were talking about, the young lady and man, where I was trying to be too much. But what happens a lot of times is I'm just too hard on myself because,
when you say, I'm trying to get to the real nature of too hard on yourself and what that means.
Okay.
Because you're saying,
like
go ahead.
I guess it's that those thought patterns, like, you shouldn't have done that, or
Okay, well, just stop right there. Stop right there for a second. Stop right there for a second. Because that's what I heard you say. And then it's sort of like, yeah, but, and there were reasons you did all that. And you're kind of trying to try to sort of, it's understandable, it's okay because you were in this family system you follow me? You're kind of like trying to talk your way out of the guilt. Right?
Yeah, you hear all the Christian ways, how you're supposed to say all these responsive whatever, and I've been in healing and walking through healing. But when I try, I guess the example would be like when I try to go to sleep at night and I'm laying down.
But let me go back to what I was saying. Let me go back to what I was saying. When you say you shouldn't have done that, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Instead of that being a trigger to get into all this debate and obsessive kind of talking yourself into a better place, what if you just said, yeah, that's true. Shouldn't have done
that. That's good.
that's why it's so cool that God forgives us. I did some stuff I shouldn't have done. That's what acceptance and grace and love is about. See,
that is a good one.
Isn't that much better if we don't fear that we did something we shouldn't have done, and we know? But the cool thing is, it's in the past, it's totally forgiven, and he wants me to move on. And the other thing is, if that tape is still in your head, that condemning kind of, you shouldn't have done that, and you shouldn't have done that, and all of that, those kind of structures that are inherited sometimes from settings we're in, or parents or churches or whatever, those are pretty, definitive, strong structures that need to be pushed against, but also we need to have some new ones kind of downloaded. to where you're
How do
really,
you?
really you processing the stuff with other people that have a much different tone about them. Yeah, if you go to a good recovery group, you ever been to an AA group or something like that, and they go, man, and then I put on this, I did a bender and all this, and everybody's accepting them, and they're even laughing at some of their foibles. They're not having to run from it, but in the army of grace and acceptance, like James says, confess your faults to one another so that you might be healed. When we tell each other about this and everybody else goes, yeah, I did that too. Oh, I did worse than that. And then you're in a new family that doesn't
I,
should on you. And that's
mm,
generally how the big power of this gets taken away.
I haven't been in AAA group, but I have started something called Regeneration. It's a group where this is kind of like that starting up. So that's how you kind of get a rebuild of healthy structures coming into you, is signing up, getting in people that will
Yeah.
help build good voice into you, is what you're saying.
We want great new voices, but you might start with not being afraid of saying, yeah, I screwed up. Yeah, I shouldn't have done that. That wasn't that smart. If I had it over again, I've learned now I wouldn't do that. But see, and here's what I'll remind you of, because you're a person of faith. The way Jesus looked at this, he said, I did not come to condemn anybody. I came to look for what's broken and heal it. So when he looks at you, then he goes, look, I'm going to come in and rescue you. You're doing some stuff that's going to hurt you. It's broken, and there's reasons for it. You're seeking medicating yourself or trying to get out of expressing some hurt and rage. I don't know what caused yours, but things do cause these things. But you're not condemned for that. He said, I just want to take you from there and let's go forward. He didn't even care. One of my favorite passages is before Peter went. I don't know what you did, but I'm sure it wasn't as bad as what Peter did when he denied Jesus 3 times. And before he did it, Jesus looked at his path, and a lot of people need to hear this because he saw your path before you ever did it. Before Peter went and did those things, he said, you know what? You're going to screw up 3 times. He said, but after you've returned, then you're going to become a source of strength to a lot of people, which is really fascinating because Jesus somehow knew that Peter's path was going to include failure, as he does all of us. And so if you understand that, then you can just kind of say, yep, I did. That was part of my path, but here's forgiveness. And that's one of the ways, and getting some settings where people can help you. Does that make sense to you?
It does, because I think it helps tear down that fear that gets behind all of that.
Absolutely.
Going.
Absolutely. We don't have to be afraid of it anymore. And I'll leave you with one verse. It's out of 1 John, and it says, fear involves judgment. And the one who fears hasn't been, it says, perfect love casts out fear, because fear involves judgment. And the one who fears hasn't been perfected or made complete in love. In other words, we haven't realized the completeness of how much love there is for whatever you've done, that judgment is not even in the picture anywhere for God. And it wouldn't be in the picture anywhere for the people that you get around in a good setting who can help you to feel that in your head. So I hope that's helpful to you. I would suggest, and I'm glad you're coming to the workshop on July 14th, the webinar on restoring our brokenness. Check out my book, Changes That Heal. And there's a lot in there on what you just talked about.